Okay, welcome. Thank you to David for organizing it. And every week we have these classes, 6 o'clock, supposed to be. Every week a different rabbi from Emet. And today we're going to speak about Torah and science. If you have questions and you want to ask me in the middle, you're welcome. Just raise your hand. And we can stay afterwards if you want also. And I'm gonna post this recording on a web, and if you want you can send it to people also if you like. So when people consider religion, to choose one religion, a different religion, any religion at all, to be secular, they usually look at two things. One is what is gonna do for them, how useful is the religion in their life. Is it going to make them rich? Is it going to make them happy? Is it going to make them have better marriage? Is it going to make them have powers? That's number one. Number two, people look at the truth. Whether the religion is true, whether it's factual, whether it's consistent, whether whatever it claims is really true. Now, if I would ask you, which one of these is more important? The usefulness or the truth? So you have a choice. Would you, let's make the choice very difficult. Would you choose to follow truth, or would you choose to follow something that is convenient, comfortable, pleasure, money? What would you choose?
Letter.
You're honest?
It depends on the person.
You usually want that, but the truth is better for you.
Truth?
Depends on the person.
I feel like people have to maybe come to the truth, because maybe they don't see the truth right away. They might start as a convenience purpose, and then slowly.
Yes, the good part is that in our religion, Baruch Hashem, in Torah, we have both. We claim to be the most useful religion and the only true religion. So the real choice is not so hard. Really, when you choose the truth, you're going to have all the good in the world also, because if there is truth and there is God, then He is the one who created the world. He's the one who created you, and the rules that He's going to give you are going to be the best. It's like following the instructions for using a complicated machine. If you follow instructions, the machine is going to work perfectly. And if you don't follow, that's when it's not going to be so useful. So the choice is very easy. But if you don't know that the Torah is true yet, and you want to be convinced which religion is the best, and therefore you might be faced with a choice. Should I choose the truth? And therefore maybe if I was choosing a profession, then maybe I should become a mathematician if I want to work with truth. And if I don't want to work with truth, maybe I'm going to become an artist, a science fiction writer, a lawyer, a salesperson. So in life also we choose such thing. You know, do I want to be on the side of truth, or I want to be on the side of money and fame? So if you were faced with this choice, how would you choose the best religion for you? Would it be based on usefulness or truth? So if you try to base your answer on usefulness, what you'll be faced with is that there are many religions, and each one claims that it's going to provide for you the best life on this earth. And if they talk about Olam Haba, not all religions do, but those that do talk about Olam Haba, those that are going to provide for you the best Olam Haba. So now you're faced with so many choices, and how do you know which one is going to be the most useful? And what you'll have to pay for the usefulness is that maybe it's not going to be true if you only concentrate on usefulness. So if we look at Hinduism, Buddhism, It might tell you you're going to have certain feelings, you might have certain visions, you might feel one with the universe, you might have prophecy.
Go ahead.
And it might be something that you like. If you look at Christianity, for example, it might promise you, choose me. I'm the most useful because you can do as much sin as you want, but then you'll just say, I love God, and that's it. Everything's going to be forgiven. So maybe that's the most useful. Or maybe the most useful is Islam, where you basically, if you want, we'll give you a gun, you can shoot. If you will give you women, you can rape, whatever you want. And plus for that, you're going to have 70 virgins also. So that's very useful. Right? But what do you choose? Do you choose spiritual life, prophetic visions of Hinduism and Buddhism? Do you choose sinful life with forgiveness afterwards of Christianity? Or do you choose murder and immorality of Islam? That's a difficult choice. So some people say, you know what? I'm going to choose one religion that fits in my budget, fits in my society, the culture, my family. Okay, and I'm going to stick with it. And that's what most people do. They're not looking for truth, they're looking for comfort. And therefore, if they're born into a Christian family, they remain Christian, and they just go to church, and they just, celebrate all their holidays, and they feel comfortable. It's useful for them. It gets them into a good college, it gets them a good wife, and that's it. They live comfortable life. Same with Muslims. I want to be accepted, I keep a beard so that they shouldn't shoot me, and therefore it's useful for me to be a Muslim. But some people are actually smarter, and what they say is, if I'm choosing a religion based on usefulness, why don't I choose and pick all the best practices from all the religions, and I make my own religion? If I find something nice in Judaism, I'm gonna adapt it. Something nice idea in Christianity, a nice custom in Islam, if they have, I'm gonna adapt it. Thoughts, customs, everything I'm gonna adapt, and I'm gonna be like a creator of my own religion for my family, and I'm gonna educate my children. Jesus said like this, you should follow it. Moses said like this, you should follow it. Muhammad said a nice quotation over here, follow that. And I'm gonna live my life with a variety of useful practices, right? So again, when we look at this, we realize that living life like this might be very good, might be very comfortable, useful, but you might be missing truth. Especially if you choose the latest idea, if you collect all the nice practices from everybody. If you say that there is no true religion in the world, that's the best thing, I agree. If there is no God and no religion, okay, just collect the best of the wisdom of the world and accept it for yourself. If your children choose differently, let them. They can decide on their own. That's true. But what if there is at least one true religion? Then you might be exchanging what you feel is useful for something that might be useful in the future, or something that is good now for something that you're going to get punished for in the future. So therefore, it's a dangerous practice to choose a religion based on usefulness alone. The second is you choosing a religion based on truth. And here we have to know how many religions can be true at the same time. Can we say that, Christianity is good for Christians, Islam is good for Muslims, and Judaism is good for Jews, and let just everybody be happy, freedom of religion, everybody should do what's right for them, and therefore there are many truths? Or do we say truth logically can only be one? If I make a statement and you disagree with me, we cannot be both right. And if we look at the religions, Christianity says that a man was God. Islam says man cannot be God, but rather Muhammad was the prophet. And we say Christianity is wrong and Islam is wrong, and we say that there is afterlife, and maybe Buddhism and Hinduism might say there is no afterlife, there is no Messiah, there is no Olam Haba. So we see that all the religions in the world argue with each other. And there are no two religions in the world that would accept another religion as being equally valid. So realistically, there is only one religion that can be true, because they're all arguing and they're all excluding each other. So now, how do we find out of so many religions the one that is the most true? And again, as I said before, our claim is that that will be the most useful religion as well. Most useful in this world and in the next world. So we have basic three criteria to make the religion true. Number one, whatever claim the religion makes, it has to be something that you can test, you can check it out. In the Talmud, it gives us an advice. If you want to lie and not be caught, what should you do? You should claim something far away or in the long future. This way, nobody will be able to find out that you're lying. For example, if I claim that far away I have hidden treasure that I put underground, and how can you check it? No way you can test it. Or if I tell you that in the past I used to be a king and I had millions of servants, there's no way for you to test it.
History, right?
I'm not going to tell you the history. I'm not going to tell you which country. I'm not going to tell you which period.
No, but
You know?
there's books and there's
Yeah, I changed my name. So if I claim something that you cannot test, you cannot call me a liar, because you don't have a proof. I only give you a little bit information, and information that you cannot test. For example, you know, there was a cult that told its followers that soon there is going to be a comet, and if you kill yourself, you're going to go there and you're going to have eternal bliss. So how were they supposed to check if this claim of their leader is true? If you kill yourself, you're going to see it's true, if you believe me. And if you don't kill yourself, you're going to miss out. You will go to Gehenna, you're going to go to hell, and it's going to be too late. Who would take such a chance? And there were many people that actually killed themselves.
But the guy that's telling them to kill themselves didn't kill himself.
Yeah, I don't remember what happened there. Maybe he was himself convinced. But again, this is something that is going to happen later. Let's look at the promise of Christianity. What do they say? Just love God and all the sins are going to be forgiven. How do you know? You don't know. Only when you're going to die, then you're going to find out were your sins forgiven or not. Will you have heaven or not? Islam says, kill Jews, and then you're going to have 70 virgins. How do I know? Only when you die, you're going to know. So there is no way to find out. So they don't give a claim that you can test. Yes?
I have a question.
Yes.
So so obviously, when the Torah says, or when the Jews say, listen, after you die, you're going to have this life after death. How do you test that physically?
Very good. There may be some claims that you cannot test, but if you have enough predictions, enough claims that you can test, and you test each one of them, and each one of them works, and statistically it cannot work unless it's true what you're claiming, that you know the truth that nobody else knows.
So how can you test on someone that's not alive?
No, listen what I'm saying. If I give you, let's say, 10 predictions, 10 scientific facts, or 10 predictions in detail, and they're unlikely to happen, or they're unlikely to be known by anybody except God, and you test them scientifically, and you wait for the time that I predict, and I'm not going to say thousands of years, I'm going to say soon, and you wait and you witness it, and you record, and you compare exactly the same as I predicted, each one of those 10 works, afterwards you're going to believe me. And then if I tell you something additional, you're going to say, you know what, he told me 10 things, and they were all true, I'll believe him for the rest. So if we look at the Torah, and we see such a complex but beautiful picture, and everything works precisely, perfectly, and correctly for thousands of years, and it was never disproven, never a mistake was found in anything. So that makes me comfortable that whatever Torah says and whatever our rabbis say, I can trust. But the problem is with other religions is that we do find mistakes, and we do find things that they claim that cannot be tested. And that's the only thing they do. Things that they try to predict and they do happen, they usually happen wrong. And then they have to change. For example, you take the Christian claim that the Jews are never going to come back to their land. And what happened? After hundreds of years, Jews came back. And then the Christians had to change their philosophy. And they said, you know what we meant? They're going to come back to their land, but they're never going to have Jerusalem. And then in 1967, Jews got Jerusalem. And Christians had to change their prediction again. You understand? So, until finally they said, okay, we give up. Jews, we were wrong. They admitted we were wrong, and Jews are not punished by God for killing Jesus. They're good people. We're going to live peacefully with them. So you see clearly they changed. Also, Christians claim that the earth is flat. And they were so adamant about it that they were killing people for it. And then finally they said, okay, we made a mistake. And other predictions they make cannot be tested. Again, by Judaism, it's not like that. Never was there an instance where the Torah predicted something and it was not true. And we have a lot of predictions that can be tested and it happened. So that's about making predictions that can be tested. This is very important. If a religion tells you, I'll give you many predictions, promises, but you cannot test them, right away you can say, I don't believe it. And the science tells us the same thing. If a scientist is going to come and say, I propose a theory, a scientific law, a theory, how the world works. And then we ask him, okay, do you have proof? And he says, no, I don't have a proof. It's something that you cannot prove. But I'm sure that's how it works. Are we going to believe him and we're going to write it in textbooks?
We'll laugh at him.
No, we'll laugh at him because the definition of science is something that can be proven. It's a theory that you can test. You can set up an experiment and test it and see if your theory works. And it has to work not only once, it has to work many, many times under different conditions, circumstances, and it always has to make sense. If not, even once it doesn't work, that means the theory is not perfect. We have to look further. For example, Isaac Newton made a theory about gravity. And it worked for hundreds of years. But then they noticed that it doesn't work anymore. When you go too fast or when something is too heavy, it doesn't work. They didn't throw it out completely until they got the new theory of Einstein, of theory of relativity. And that was much better theory. But you see, even in science, it has to be proven. And being proven is for science, is not perfect because it depends on your instruments. Like with Isaac Newton, we see that when our instruments improved, we were able to see that it's not perfect. It was not completely false, but it was not perfect. That's the first one. It has to be predicted. Now, if we look at, I'm going to mention it and we're going to talk about it later if we have time. Science also sometimes claims theories that cannot be proven. For example, one of these theories is the theory of how the world began. What do they say? They say the Big Bang. Okay, you can try to see what happened in the past, but you can't really prove what happened in the past, because what happened in the past cannot be tested. You can, looking at now, you can try to see what was before, but that would be a good guess. That would not be 100% true, because it's only science if you can repeat the experiment, and you can't repeat the experiment. But that doesn't stop there. It goes further, because the question is what happened at the moment of Big Bang, and that we don't know. And what happened before the Big Bang, we also don't know. And now, according to the new theory of science, there was not one Big Bang, but there were multiple Big Bangs. How do you know? We don't know, but we have to make this assumption for our theory to work. So this is something that we invent just to save ourselves. Why? Because the theory of the Big Bang scientifically is not going to work. Even if you could test it, it's not going to work unless you say that it happened infinite number of times for there to be a small chance, 1 out of infinity, for it to work perfectly in this universe. And it happened in infinite number of parallel universes, which means we have no contact with those universes, and therefore we can never check. Is there another universe? Are there infinite number of parallel universes? This is something we can never test, because it's outside of our universe if it exists. And so therefore this theory of science, which we call science, is not really science. It cannot be proven. It's only our imagination that I imagine. It's a fantasy that for my fantasy to work, I have to imagine infinite number of universes with Big Bangs. That's just to show that even science sometimes makes this mistake, claiming something that cannot be proven. You cannot prove are there parallel universes or not. Now, this is the first thing, that religion must give you testable prediction, testable claim. Number two is, let's say it gives you a prediction, and that prediction comes true. There has to be only one explanation for that event happening. And the explanation has to be only yours. For example, if I tell you, if you invest with me, you're going to become rich. And you know why you're going to become rich? Because I believe in a certain idol, and that idol blesses everybody who invests with me. It blesses them with wealth. Okay, so let's say you believe me and you invest with me. And it's true. You gave me $1,000. A few days later, I told you, I earned another 1,000. Now I give you 2,000 back. Are you going to believe that my idol is true? You are? No, because the fact that my prediction came true is good, but that doesn't tie it to my explanation. It's true that I told you, you give me 1,000, I'm going to give you back 2,000. That happened. But the second part of my statement, it's because the idol blessed you. How do you know that that's true? Maybe it's because I'm a very savvy businessman and I know how to invest, and I have PhD in economics and finance, and I know all the ins and outs, and I have good connections, and I invested in the right stock. Maybe that's why, and it has nothing to do with my idol. You get the idea? That there must be only one explanation for this event. The same thing if I create a miracle. There has to be one explanation. It has to be only one source, which is the higher power, whether it's idol or the true God. If I can explain it any other way, that doesn't prove that I'm right. Maybe it's a trick. Maybe it's an illusion. You don't know. And number three, whenever I make predictions, claims, and they can be tested, now we have to wait and see Does it really happen? So now, if you analyze all the religions, you're going to see that out of thousands of religions, we're going to end up not with so many. Christianity we already looked at. It already made predictions and claims that didn't happen, and they were false. With Islam, what they claim is, the famous claim of Islam is that, you know why Muslims now occupy so much land and they conquered so many countries? Thank you. And do you know why so many people converted to Islam? It's because our Allah is the greatest and He is making us win. So now it sounds like a good prediction and it makes sense. Why else would they conquer so much land and so many followers?
Because of their population.
How do they get that population?
Because they believe in making more kids.
Well, that not only that. If you analyze the claim, you can find that there is more than one reason for the population explosion. One could be that their God is really making them great.
More wives.
Or it could be, number one, naturally, because they have 4 wives. Number two, why do people convert to Islam? Not because they want to, but because they're forced. Whole countries are terrorized and forced to convert. Of course people are going to convert. You're forcing them. So just because billions of people follow Islam doesn't mean that they're true. It just means that they're using illegal tactics to sign up people that don't want to be Muslim. And the same happened to Christianity. Whole countries would convert only because it was good for the king to convert. Like it happened with Russia 1,000 years ago. The Tsar of Russia wanted to marry someone, a princess from another country, and they made the condition, you are idol worshippers, we're only going to marry you if you convert to Christianity. And he said, okay, tomorrow morning, the whole Russian population, millions of people are going to be Christians. Okay, and they got married. So did Russians become Christians? No. They continued serving idols for hundreds of years, and even now. And now someone came from Ukraine, a Goita, and she said that, hey, now everyone in Russia is saying, let's go back to our origins. Let's throw out Christianity and let's become idol worshippers. And now the whole Russian society is turning back to, once they had felt the freedom, they're turning back to idol worship. So Russians never became Christians. So you see that Muslims claim that they're the best because their God makes them successful. Christians say the same thing. Why did we conquer so many countries? Because Jesus makes us successful. So now you have 2 religions that are making the same claim. So you see that the claim of large population and military success has more than one explanation. Muslims have the Allah, the Christians have the Jesus, and we have the natural explanation. Force, trickery, bribery, killings. So that's not a good claim. And by the way, that is why Hashem makes us small in number, that we shouldn't make such a claim. You're going to be small in number. Why? So that anyone who wants to become Jewish is going to do that because it's true, not because he's impressed by your power. Now let's now go to our main topic, Torah and science. So the science claimed for thousands of years, starting from the Greeks, that the universe was eternal. That was the Greek idea. Universe was eternal. There was no point of beginning. Time always existed. Matter always existed. Space always existed and was the same. And when Jews argued with them, they had very hard time. They said, look, our Torah says, Bereshit, in the beginning. Must be there was beginning to time. God created. Must be there was beginning to space and energy and matter. And all the scientists told us, no, you're going against science. You're crazy. Look at the world. Do you see stars? Did you ever see they change? No, that means universe is eternal. Look, we have scientific proof. In your 100 years of life and your grandparents, 200, your great-grandparents, in the last 300 years, was there any change? No. The stars are still in the same location. The sun is still rotating. Everything is the same. The mountains, the rivers, must be. Universe is eternal. We had very difficult times until about 100 years ago, Einstein came and he said what? He said there was beginning to time. He figured out that time is not a constant. Time does not flow uniformly. It can change faster, slower. And there was a point where time didn't exist. And then later, they figured out when did the universe start, because they looked at a certain thing called background radiation, and they made calculation that if there was such a thing as a Big Bang, it would create a certain energy, and that energy can be felt right now. And they looked at the stars, and they saw that the stars are moving apart, the galaxies are moving apart, and they calculated what if we go back in time. And they figured out that it would probably take this many years for it to be where it is now if it started at one point. So now, look at it. Torah made a prediction. In the first word already, Bereshit, there was a beginning. There was a creation. The whole world argued on us. But we made a prediction. And we waited for thousands of years, until 100 years ago, for this prediction to be true. Yes, there was a beginning. Now the argument was, when was the beginning? Was it, according to our calendar, 6,000 years since creation of man? Or according to science, billions of years ago? Okay, that remains to be tested. Although now the Torah gives us enough hints to be able to reconcile and to say that there is no argument. And books like Gerald Schroeder's book, Genesis and the Big Bang, and other theories, they show you how it's not a problem. Whether you look at the theory of relativity itself, that early in time, when the gravity was greater because the whole universe was the one place, and the speeds were much greater, time was going slower. And as the universe expanded, became less dense, gravity went down, and the velocities dropped, time started going faster. So according to our clock, if we go back, yes, it's true, it's billions of years. But the time didn't always tick the same way. And therefore, if you start back then, you'll see that it's only 6,000 years from the creation of man, and only 6 days for the entire universe to come to the structure that it is now. That's one theory. Another theory speaks about the flood, and after the flood things changed. Okay, but we're not bound by any of that. And plus, science constantly changes. What I want to point out to you is something that seemingly is clearly not true was proven to be true. That there was a beginning to time, beginning to space. And now everybody knows that the world was created. The question is, by whom? By God or by itself? But the first prediction of the Torah, that there was a beginning and there was a creation, is true. Now, scientists are trying to predict what's going to be with the end of the world. How are we going to end up? And the Torah again says, in the end, what's going to be? The world is going to disappear. Why? Because God created the world only with a certain purpose. And the purpose is that the people there should earn eternal reward. Once they do earn the eternal reward, they go to Olam Haba, and they're going to have spiritual existence, close to God, receiving reward for all the tests they passed here. After that, this world has no purpose, and this world is going to be discarded. Okay? According to science, again, we had a problem. The science said the world is going to continue forever. And even after they failed 100 years ago in their predictions of the past, they still held on to their prediction of the future. Okay, there was a Big Bang, and now the universe is just floating into space forever. The more smart scientists said, let's come up with another theory. If there was a Big Bang, it's true that one possibility is that the world is just gonna continue flying into space forever. But there's another possibility. What if there is enough mass in the universe so that eventually the gravity is gonna slow down the expansion, and the expansion is slowly gonna stop like a spring, and then it's gonna pull back and compress, and there's going to be a big crunch, what they call. So there were two theories in science. One was that the universe is going to expand forever, and another one is that it's going to expand to a certain limit, and then it's going to compress, and then again expand, compress, and like this they said it's probably happening forever, and our world maybe is not the first world, and it's Big Bang, crunch, bang, crunch. Until 4 years ago, in 2011, two groups of scientists received Nobel Prize. For what? For showing that both of these theories are wrong. The universe is not going to expand forever, and the universe is not going to crunch up. What's going to happen to the universe? And they said like this: we noticed that the universe is not going at the same speed, which would indicate that it's going to go forever, and it's not slowing down, which would indicate that it's eventually going to crunch. But rather, what's happening to the universe? It's going faster and faster. What's going to be if it's going faster and faster? If it's going faster and faster, two things. Number one, it means that there is energy coming into the universe from outside. Otherwise, what would push such a huge body as a whole universe to go faster and faster? If you want the car to go faster and faster, you have to put energy.
Yeah, but in space you really don't need energy. Once you get momentum, there's no gravity to stop it.
But not to increase your speed, not to accelerate.
It would stay pace.
It would stay the same, but what is making everything in the universe go faster and faster? And this is the modern science theory, the newest. That the universe is expanding at an accelerated rate. Energy is being supplied from outside. By whom? So they said we have to adjust our theory. They said there must be something called dark matter. And there must be something called dark energy. Because we don't see it, we don't know of it, we cannot detect it. But let's call it dark energy. And they said that the universe that we see now is, according to calculations, is only 4% of the actual universe. The rest, 96%, is dark. Dark means we can never detect it. We cannot see it. We can only make a theory about it. But without those 96%, our 4% don't make sense. So now if you look at it, what's interesting, how do they describe this dark energy? They say this dark energy is very uniform. It penetrates the entire universe uniformly. And even though universe expands, it does not diminish the strength of this energy. The expansion continues at the same acceleration as it was before, and the same is going to happen in the future. Even though it's expanding, usually things get more rare, more spaced out. But this dark energy, even though you stretch it, it remains the same strength. Number two, they say that this dark energy cannot be felt. We cannot feel it. And this energy is pushing everything that's happening in this universe. It's expanding the universe, and ultimately it's going to bring the universe to its ultimate end, when it's going to, the energy that we see is going to be gone from the universe, because it's going to, the normal energy that we have does diminish with time, and as it gets stretched out, the energy level drops and drops until it's going to just disappear into nothingness. So if you think about it, this is exactly how we describe God. God is omnipresent. He is present everywhere equally. You cannot say this place, God is not there. The place wouldn't exist if God wasn't there. He is everywhere at all times. He is all-powerful, and he cannot be seen. Cannot detect God. They call it dark energy. We call it infinite light. This is a second example how something that the Torah predicted, that there is God who runs the world constantly, and he's going to bring the world eventually to disappear. We sing it in Adon Olam. Kichlot hakol, when everything's going to be gone, levado yimloch nora, he's going to be the only one king. There's going to be no physical world anymore. So the second prediction of Torah also came true. The science had to admit, again, they're not admitting it openly, but their theories speak for themselves. They're inventing a scientific idea of what God is. An invisible being that cannot be detected throughout the universe. As much as you stretch him, doesn't diminish, and it controls everything and it pushes the universe. It's amazing. And I'm going to end with one more. The Torah says that how did man come on this earth? The Torah says God made man. Right? So this is another claim. The science, again, came up with its own theory to show that you can create man without religion. And what did they say? Really, it's all an accident. Really, there were just laws of physics, and there were atoms. The atoms slowly formed molecules, and the molecules slowly, by bumping into each other, formed more complicated molecules, and the more complicated molecules formed certain structures, and those certain structures formed the first cell, and that first cell slowly developed into a multicellular organism, and those multicellular organisms slowly developed into more advanced organism, until eventually we get a human being with a mind walking on this planet. Yeah, it sounds like a good theory. Again, this is not a scientific theory because it cannot be proven. It was never proven. There was never shown that even one example exists that it happens like that. And again, in the last century, this was one of the biggest problems for religious people to combat. What are we going to do? It sounds logical. The Torah itself tells us that it started with plants, then fish, and birds, animals, and then humans. So it makes sense. Makes sense. But now, more and more scientists are turning away from that theory, because they say two things. Number one, the chances of randomly assembling a biological structure from atoms is 1 out of infinity almost. For it to happen, even if you say 15 billion years, for it to happen 15 billion years is impossible. You need 15 billion years times another billion, and times another billion, and maybe times another few times billion years. Only then maybe. But even that is not for sure. That's problem number one. And there's no argument, because everybody agrees. Biological structures are so complicated, so So many parts have to go into them to make one cell. So many proteins, so many enzymes, so many molecules, and each molecule is different. Or if anybody took organic chemistry, how complicated it is. That just doesn't make sense. Scientifically, it doesn't make sense. Number two, one of the biggest questions that science has is the theory of evolution is based on the principle that everything that's alive wants to stay alive and is going to fight for its survival. That's called survival of the fittest. The survival instinct. Every living thing has the survival instinct. People have it, animals have it, fish has it, plants have it, bacteria has it, and viruses have it. Everything has it. Now, if I ask you, who gives living organisms the survival instinct? Where is it programmed? So some people say, I feel hungry. My stomach hurts. It's not a survival instinct that someone programmed. It just hurts. And I learned that if I drink or I eat, it helps me with my pain. So it's not really instinct to survive, but rather it's running away from pain. Okay, it's a different question. Who created such a complicated system, nervous system and the system of pain? Okay, that's true for a human. And maybe it's even true for a dog. A dog is running around, hunting, running after the cat, after a bone. Why doesn't the dog just say it's easier just to lie down on a sidewalk and die? You can say, okay, because it feels hungry. But you go lower. What about plants? Do plants feel pain if they're hungry? I don't think so. And you go even lower. What about the bacteria? A single cell organism. They don't have a brain. They don't have pain receptors. They don't have nervous system. Why would the bacteria want to propagate, want to move around, want to eat, want to fight, want to have children? For what? And you go even lower into viruses. Viruses is something between living and not living. They're not even sure if it's alive because it doesn't eat, it doesn't reproduce, doesn't go to the bathroom. What is virus? It's just a shell with RNA or DNA inside. That's it. Nothing else. It can only move. It can attack a cell, put its RNA or DNA into the cell, and the cell is already going to create more viruses. But the virus itself cannot do what it takes to be alive. So again, the same question. Who gave this molecular structure desire to continue living? Science doesn't have answer, and it admits that we cannot know the answer because this is something that cannot be explained. How can few molecules have consciousness? So the Torah claim remains the most plausible, the most true in our 21st century. That there must have been creator who created the world and who created life and who created the man. I mentioned before that science requires an infinite number of big bangs, right? And I just want to, if you're still here, I'm going to continue talking. You're welcome to take food. I once was at an astronomy lecture at the university, and it was a public lecture for everybody, and I was the only one there with a kippah. And at the end of the lecture, someone asked the professor. He was a famous professor who lectured all over the world, and they asked him, he was not religious, and they asked him, tell us, professor, if you're saying that there was Big Bang and it happened randomly, then how is it possible that randomly everything happened so perfect, so beautifully? And he told this man, he said, you know what? It's a very good question. And this question bothered us for many years. And it's true what you're saying, because if the Big Bang was a random occurrence, just out of nothingness something occurred, we don't know why and what caused it, then the laws of physics were created together with it. There were no laws of physics before Big Bang. Just like matter was created at Big Bang, time and space and energy, so too laws of physics were created then. And why did laws of physics and math were created perfectly? How did it happen? And it says not only that, even if you had laws of physics, but for an atom to exist, the relationship between a proton and a neutron has to be exactly what it is now. If neutron was a little bit heavier or a little bit lighter, or the proton would be a little bit heavier or lighter, the nucleus would not be able to stay together. So we would not have atoms, and therefore nothing else. The whole universe would just be one big soup of nothingness. So he says, it's true what you're saying. We don't know why it happened. How is it possible that out of infinite possibilities, everything was so perfect? And therefore he said, we propose two new theories. Two explanations. How did the world come about? Number one, we have to admit that there is God. And this is a secular scientist talking. That's one explanation. And the second explanation is, for those who don't believe in God, that there must have happened infinite number of Big Bangs. And those infinite number of Big Bangs were all random. And we can hope that one out of infinity should produce a perfect world. It's true that all the other billions and trillions of worlds, parallel universes, are all dead. Nothing ever happened there. But it's possible, one chance out of infinity, that one world came out normal. And of course, we are here to witness it, because we can never live in any other world. So again, coming back to what we said, that in order to make a theory true, it has to be something that can be tested. This particular theory of science, they gave two theories. One is that there is God, and one that there was infinite number of Big Bangs. Such a theory cannot be tested. Because again, we have no access to outside of our universe. We don't know if there is even one parallel universe, let alone infinite number of parallel universes, and that they all came from a Big Bang. And we don't know how to explain Big Bang. So the only reasonable answer, according to this professor, is that there is God. And as we looked at the examples, all the other religions also claim there is God. So this might support them. But then we look at proofs of a religion being true, and we see that none of them can make predictions that are accurate. None of them can make claims that can be tested, except Judaism. And therefore Judaism remains the only true religion that has never been disproven, never anything was found wrong with it, and it's the most useful religion, and that we can see clearly. We cannot start with usefulness before we prove the truthfulness. And Judaism is the most useful. Why? Because we see the Jews are the most successful race on the planet in all history.
With the smallest population.
With the smallest population, which decreases our chances of being successful, and still we're successful. We have lived here longest, we are the richest, and now we are in the richest neighborhood that's run by Jews. We are smartest. I mean, whatever criteria you look at, we're the best. So you see that by following the guidelines of the Torah, it will make you the most successful individual. So Be'ezrat Hashem, we should only strive to come closer to understanding of Hashem, and just like it says over here, Anochi Hashem, and this is in this week's Parsha, the first of the 10 commandments, Anochi Hashem Elokecha, which is, you must know that there is God. You have to not believe, you have to know there is God. And so we should grow in our knowledge of God, and we should be able to use everything that Judaism has to offer and become successful, Be'ezrat Hashem, with our families and with our children until Mashiach. Amen.
Amen.